Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Neureal Community Livestream for, what is it? June 9th. Good Lord. June 9th. Wow, we're getting on in months, guys. My name's Kyler. I'm the community manager for the Neureal Project. I'm joined here by a couple of fantastic gentlemen who I will allow to introduce themselves. Will, why don't you go ahead and start? Yeah. Chief Technology Officer, CTO. Yeah. Gotcha. That title. Gotcha. Go ahead, Redbeard. It's true. You got your fingers. You have your fingers in a lot of pies these days, sir. Makes sense. Makes sense. We're glad to have you with us. All right, guys. Well, we've got some business to get to, and fortunately, some. Hey, Corey, no sound. No sound. That's not right. Hold on a second. Uh, should be better now for both guests. All right, it should be working now. So this is Will Bound, Chief Architect. For those of you who didn't hear the guests, for some reason the sound was off. It should be working now. Guys, why don't both of you go ahead and say something so they can test that? But I'm looking at the monitors and it was off and now it's working. This is why you need to show up more than 1 minute beforehand, guys. I have to do a sound check. All right, what
We're
do you
dealing with
guys?
engineers here.
All right, Corey, let me know if you heard him. Yeah, it should all be working now. So this is also Christopher Snook, an advisor for our project and a prolific ICO advisor and member. I mean, like I said, he's got his finger in a lot of pies. So we're gonna move on. Good to see you, Corey. Hello too. We're gonna move on. Will has some good news. Good news and exciting news and maybe deep, strange, far out, mad scientisty kind of talk later on. But let's get to the good news about the token code.
So hopefully soon we'll have I'll be ready to release the our like preliminary foundation cell token code out so that everybody can take a look at it and maybe help out, and it'll be the idea is that we want to do make the foundation cell kind of like a trial TGE, right? So we're going to put into place as much as we can. It'll be simplified, but we're going to try to put into place as much as we can, as much automation as we can. Try to get as many things in there so we can test it out and get it ready for the TGE. Because we're doing some things that are a little bit different than most people. So it's not cookie cutter code. It's not like we're going to token market or something and just using their contract. And so it's going to take some effort to to really test out and make sure all the stuff's secure and works right, and going through all that stuff. So
Not to say that we're against taking code where it makes sense, just that nobody's done a sale like this.
yeah, not exactly the same. So I mean, there's pieces and parts from different places. So I'll be releasing that out so just on our GitHub, our public GitHub there, so people will be able to check it out and see what the kind of the ideas I have and the direction I'm going with that. So at that point, we'd really appreciate, or we're going to try to make they could put up some bounties for different things, for help in that area or whatever. So anyway, so hopefully that's soon. I'm making progress with that, some good progress. I feel confident we can get that out. Hopefully really soon. That'll be the next step that I do.
We got some coding bounties that are also currently available. If you haven't checked those out yet, head into let me know. I'll put you in the dev channel. If you are a developer, if you're a non-developer and you just want to come in there and talk metaphysical yin yang, kick rocks. But if you are a developer and you want to come help us out, we've got some bounties posted, and there's the ability to earn tokens, although the amount is currently unspecified.
Yeah, we'll figure
Which
that out. And then for the first one, the very first one, it's really simple. So I was hoping to put something out there that pretty much anybody could do. In fact, I just added up some code that is kind of a beginning for that. If anybody wants to jump in there, look the code that's up there. It's a start, so you can see kind of where I'm going, and then see if you can figure it out. It's a much simpler project. The second bounty is really hard. So it's like a data science kind of thing. It's really difficult. It's going to be really hard. So if you really want a big data science challenge, um, you know, that one's going to be really useful for our marketing to help people to really give credit to what we're doing. And I think we needed this the whole time. It's kind of like everybody who it's a proof not proof of concept of it's not like the product, not like a proof of the product, but um it'll give people a better, like, at least especially data scientists, a better like respect for the architecture that we've come up with. If we can get that and get those numbers and get those it's a comparison with charts and everything so that people can look at that and say, oh, well, this has some really high upside potential as far as scaling and everything. We got the idea from one of our advisors, Ben Taylor, who um, who is a data science extraordinaire. He's just a really good, like, he was top data scientist at HireVue, which is a huge company that uses data science to help people get, they use video to help people hire people, right, to get good hires in a company.
yeah, nurses
um,
particularly is what I think that they
is
said,
that what
wasn't
they
that?
said? Anyway, but he has his own company now. He has like $500,000 worth of well, I don't know if it's that much, but he they do data science exclusively. They're trying to do something more, um, rather than like the traditional way. They're trying to uh, tighten the from data to uh,
Oh, the pipeline, the data pipeline.
yeah, the pipeline from data to putting things in production, right? So
Right.
you can actually use them. So that shortened that pipeline, for custom stuff that you can't really get on the cloud or like on Google's cloud or stuff like that. You can't really use their stuff, and you can always use anyway. So they're working on that sort of thing in the company. But anyway, he's basically laid out something that said, like, if you can provide me or anybody these numbers, that people will be really excited about it and try to jump on board. So anyway, so that's what we're doing with that. So if you have questions about that, I have a good view of what I think needs to be done for that. I have a really good view, and Jordan's been working on it, and I think he kind of picked it up a lot, so he can help out too. Um, so if you're interested in that,
All you gotta do is jump in the
review.
developer channel and start talking about
Yeah.
it.
Anyway, that's all that's there right now, but we'll be adding some more too as we get deeper into the KYC thing. I think we're gonna maybe need some help there. Plus, when I put the contract code up, we're gonna start working on taking that and evolving it into the TGE code. So we'll need some help with that too, probably. So anyway, that's all that stuff.
Yeah, we got a little bit of other business to deal with today, guys. I am gonna leave this. I've been saying I was gonna do this for a while. I finally got it done. Here is the survey for the best times for us to conduct these community live streams, guys. We know that you want to be here. We've talked to a lot of you that want to be here and just don't have the time availability during this particular time slot. We initially took one of these surveys to determine this time slot, but our community was much smaller when we did that, and so it was mostly just people around Utah. And so we understand that we need to adjust in order to better fit your guys' schedule, and we want you guys to be a part of this as much as possible. So if you will go to the following link, I'm going to pop it into the chat. If you're not here live, I'm going to pop it into the Telegram channel, and we've also tweeted it, and it's on our Facebook page, and it's in our Facebook community. Go to this Telegram, or go to this link, take the survey, leave me at the very end on the last comment section, leave me your email address that you used to sign up for our bounty program. The first 20 people are going to get 50 tokens. The first 100 people are going to get 25 tokens. It's a good time. Get in there. Make some tokens. Make us happy. Let us know when we can best interact with you guys. So that's it as far as that business goes. Now, Will, you were telling me shortly before the call, and hopefully this is something that we can draw Snook into as well, because he's just sitting there bored. You said that you were experimenting with something today, and you may have figured out something really cool.
Yeah. But before we go into that, I just want to know. I mean, we talked a little bit last time, Chris, but I don't remember. I'm just trying to, like, you're talking about, like, I just want to get to know you a little bit better. I think I'd like to.
Yeah.
If that's
of course.
Good idea.
You want me to expound about myself?
Well, I mean, you were talking about you're in a bunch of different projects. So, like, you're doing.
No, actually, we're working on Predict.io containers right now, Jesse and I. We're also working with the ideas of, since compliance and regulation is utmost in this particular phase of time for ICO industry, we're working on some financial blockchain interface to make everything easy. Pay your taxes, have everything linked up to where it's easily verifiable.
He's also building a thing called VeterNet, which is it's more of a long-term goal, but it's using blockchain technology in order to benefit homeless vets. And there's a really long-term, very wide, broad strategy there that it would be very hard to explain in such a short call. But I personally find it fascinating and fantastic, and we've talked about it quite a bit. And
right. And let me just put it quickly. VeterNet is us making a cloud infrastructure using veterans to guard post different cloud nodes. So very, very interesting. Someday I'd love to expound on it. But that is my main goal.
So yeah, we talked about that on the phone a while back, right?
Yeah.
Extensively.
Right.
So
exactly.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that really well. So
well,
that sounded really awesome.
Part of the things that we're doing are very, very RAM and processor intensive. Mm-hmm. And having the nodes, the neuron nodes, in close proximity to one another is very important. Oh my animals are running circles around an empty house right now. Sorry.
They are right now?
Right now, my golden retriever is doing laps around the stairs. If you can hear her.
Oh, that's awesome. I miss my girl. She passed away not that long ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, this one's going to pull them down, or she's going to have a heart attack.
Oh, yeah, you better watch out.
Hey, I've met both of your dogs.
Really?
Yeah, I definitely met yours. I mean, our dogs used to hang out, but I met his when I went up to the blockchain event up in Washington.
Oh.
Oh yeah, Goldie's an excitable one.
Yeah, it sure is.
Oh yeah. But you're helping. What I'm interested in this. You said something IO.
So Predict.io. So Jesse has been delving into. So Amazon offers Predict.io engines, but you can spin them up. It's DevOps, open source. However, so thought about predicting a stream from training data, and then making an inference about needing external data, putting a pen in it, and then making a new predictor to study a new facet. So imagine a front end that could pick out what to talk about, and then maybe when there's a tiebreaker, talk to Neureal. So I need somebody to give me an outside perspective. But that's the thing about thought, and I'm sure we can get into this in great detail. there's parallel processes and serial processes.
Right.
There's right brain and left brain. And if we mimic the human psyche, there is command decisions, which are serial. And then there's parallel, where you're experiencing all the sensory, neural sensory, right? All of your different training data that's coming in all at once with the mechanism that is going CPU is looking in time at each instance separately.
Right.
Anyway, so that's the thought, is that there should be a front end for, say, any application that you want to predict on, the place where you can input your data streams and things that you are considering to look for patterns and whatever pattern you're looking for, right? So there's the front end, and then there are back ends where the predictors will decide which data trail to start to delve into and look for patterns. So very, very loose discussion right now with Jesse about how to interface. But this is where it's at. AI, machine learning, augmented reality. These technologies in concert with blockchain, this is the future. So even though it's kind of out of my space, however, a cloud is what drives it all. So I built the infrastructure that, it's used servers, but 3-year-old servers are really fast, right? And imagine what's coming up. We get donated servers and we have hundreds of thousands of them. We can do a lot of thinking. We can do a lot of thinking in concert with miners. So you have GPU and CPU along with in the same location. It allows us to do a lot of data sorting and statistical analysis and putting pins, making projects to be elaborated upon, to train bots how to talk to oracles. And, get consensus.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Wow, that's that's what we're on. That's why you're here, right?
Exactly. It's what I'm interested in. Well,
also,
you are a client. I can give you power, RAM. I can give you all these things at a discount in comparison to what all the giants are charging, because I'm getting donated equipment and I have veterans watching after it, making their lives worthwhile, giving them something else to do besides be sick and worry, right? Something to be proud of. And imagine hundreds of thousands of veterans watching over these data centers, little bitty ones everywhere.
Yeah.
You told me build like a community of good people. So
like a brain, we're going to have lots of nodes. The more, the better, right? The more things thinking about, we can overcome the larger AIs because we work together. That open source technology is the key. Everybody notices that Linux is overtaking Microsoft OSs. This is because of the community that work together. We are stronger together. We are more innovative together. So that's what we're telling the giants, is that we no longer have to be your slaves. We can work together to make our own AI. We are all in competition. But Siri and who's the other ones? Alexa, Cortana. One I was in the building where Cortana came up, but Watson, etc. All these AIs, we're building one for the community, right?
Yep.
And one thing about that is we can have many predictors. We can have many ways to look at prediction. And when you combine those together, you get strength. So mining of GPU and CPU together is the key.
It is. No, I 100% agree with everything you just said. More than just agree. That's where my heart is. So I'm glad that you're on the same path. I didn't know. I mean, we talked a lot about the other stuff, but I'm glad that you're working on that. Who's this other guy that you're talking about?
Jesse Uri. He is kind of a, and I hope he doesn't like me saying his name. I have some other team members as well. I have a Solidity dev who is coming up available to look at code, and that's what we want to do. Is we're about the science. We weren't allowed to do what we came in to do at Titanium, and what we're interested in is making a mark on the world. It's not about the money; it's about the science, and the money
Yeah.
comes with building something that really is useful. The utility, that's what I care about, and that's what we're trying to do, is innovate while we can.
That's awesome. Well, sweet. Well, I'm glad you're here. But I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad you came to our. Came to
To our
this.
live stream today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this live stream.
Well, exactly. Thank you.
So, yeah. So, that's awesome. And anything, anything that I can do to help you out with the things that you run into too. Don't hesitate to ask me about, to see if there's anything I can help you with what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
As far as solving problems or giving, even just giving you maybe new ideas that you didn't think of or something like that.
Some
So,
working.
and I welcome the
sessions
same
would be-
thing for myself too. So
Right on. Some working sessions would be in order, I think, at least maybe once a week. And let's also get with the devs on my side and see what their availability is.
that would be awesome.
I know Jesse's been shy, but he's been busy studying on his own. And I think that the collaboration, now that he's had a solid month of study into Predict.io,
Mhm.
we've been studying oil telemetry,
Yeah,
and
you
we're
talked
able
about
to
that project.
do predictions. However, the application, right, is like what's important, what are sweet spots, knowing people in industries who can be, like, for instance, a doctor. These are the hallmarks of a cold. These are hallmarks of an infection.
Right.
The same thing goes, it's like these are hallmarks of a drill bit going bad. These are the hallmarks of going through the wrong material. These are the vibrations, etc. On and on. You can take this. These are the hallmarks of a bad financial deal. These are the hallmarks of a. So you teach the machines how to know patterns of, this is a giraffe, right? This is an elephant. It's all about perspective. It's like a giraffe could be a number of things. So as we teach these predictors, and we're able to store the metadata about that prediction, I'm so excited about what we could really do. The power of knowing the right way to go, of not doing the wrong thing, the savings. Just being able to know more about what direction anything is doing, anything. So it's the sky's the limit. This really is the time where we could do things like explore Mars, do things by making the right decision and going the right way. It's always more productive.
Yeah. Or at least a better decision, right? Going a better way.
Exactly. It does not matter what it is, and it does not matter what the trade is. This is the stuff that I know that I can look for. But maybe the data might elicit or say that there is another variable, another variance that you can go and bring into your data set.
Yeah.
Right. Something missing, and people teaching their jobs anyway. I can go on and on and on. This is a space I've become very passionate about, because cloud technology allows us to have. You can build themselves, right? They can decide to get larger or smaller, or they can decide to fraction, to consolidate. They can do anything they want to, and at the speed that people can barely comprehend. Anyway, it's very exciting to me. This is just like being a physicist or something to me. I do nothing but think about it. Think about it.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I think about. I don't think about Lambos. I think about. I just think about things that excite me and bring excitement to my imagination.
We've been talking about attention, so that sounds similar to what attention is. So attention, we were talking about that. There's some algorithms out there, like I ran into some stuff, and there was an article I read, and so I was looking into it, spending some time, and it turns out it's not exactly what you're talking about, but it's they're basically adding in to like all the layer creation, like this layer that optimizes like the view of something. So like if you're looking for a giraffe, it picks out, like, instead of looking at the whole picture, it picks out the part that's important, and it only looks at that, right? So it figures that out too. At the same time, it's figuring out what everything is, right? And so, but I know that like attention is about efficiency, right? It's about getting the most out of the hardware that you have, and that's what you're talking about. You're talking about, a pattern or a process whereby you can pull the most information out of the hardware you have available, by being more efficient, by taking it in a stepwise process and starting out, rather than trying to just mass do it all at once. You do it in a stepwise process where you start out and you figure out which direction to go next, right? And so you're basically navigating the data that's out there and figuring out like which one is more important for the purpose you're trying to get. So
let's take the solving the maze. To get through the maze process, sometimes you go down all the pathways, right? So to solve how to get
that's
out of the
great.
rat maze, you actually do calculate all the different possibilities. So I don't know how many of you out there have ADHD, but I do. When I've got a problem on my mind that I can't get rid of, can't get out of my mind, I go through all the possibilities, right? So that's the thing that's beautiful, is a machine has nothing to do besides decide which possibility to go down, right? And solving the problem. So take proof of work, for example. And I know a lot of people hate proof of work because it's so wasteful. However, if you are actually doing something important, if you're actually doing work, right? If I'm actually trying to find a needle in a haystack and trying to use a recursive method to find that needle faster, then it's like, okay, I know it's not over here, so I don't look there again, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Just thinking about people and how we think and taking that and codifying it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really fun thing. That kind of segues into my thing I was going to talk about a little bit. Not totally, but it's just something that Tyler mentioned earlier. Jordan and our other founder or whatever, and then Jake, who's our advisor. So they were just here earlier, and there's something that's been kind of stewing in my mind with all the discussions and everything, and it's something that is I think might have the potential to kind of change something really foundational about blockchain and what the benefits it gives us, and also like the AI side of it, like AI and how those. I know Neureal works a certain way, and it kind of separates the two. So in Neureal, we took the strength of the blockchain and made that have its role, and then the AI is kind of separate, right? So they're not integrated together directly in the code, right? So the code that runs AI,
right?
It just is built for connecting to the AI. So that's like the difference between us and a lot of the other projects, or one of the differences in a lot of the projects out there. But there's been a lot of stuff happening out there, and some of the things people have been talking with, and something that we I've been thinking about doing is actually taking and integrating some actual AI into our blockchain. And where that would be is in our the algorithm for the Oracle, where it determines the payout, like the prediction closest type, the PCC.
Okay.
And so what I was thinking is, instead of having, you can come up with a lot of schemes and a lot of strategies for doing that, right? Like the simplest one is either they hit it right on the dot and they get all the one example.
I see what you're saying. So it's also like, so where the price goes. Oh, I just lost it. Man, I had a profound thought. I've got to like record them.
Oh no! I want
Oh,
to
it
hear
was
it. What is
profound.
it?
I just lost it. I went down another path. See, that's the thing. Sometimes you lose the path. You need to put a pen in the right stuff.
That's right. You got to hold it
No,
in
no,
there.
no, it was about
Okay, yeah.
consensus. It was about consensus. Okay.
So
So
yeah.
being able to trust the data that you have coming in. So think about statistical analysis.
Hmm.
Deciding what the probability of something being correct is, what the variance is, what the what is that, the factor of error, percentage error possibility. So blockchain allows you to trust your data because I know that it has been verified.
Hmm.
So think about the many industries where somebody does something that requires verification of the data, like underwriting. Everybody wants to do a push button mortgage, right? But you have to have all these different things that can be stored in the blockchain and their validity be verified. So
Hmm.
the AI can therefore say everything's here, put it in order, right? It's just automating a process that's normally done by people, and then thereby saying the percentage that I need somebody's eyes to see it, right? So that's a way for us to sell services to corporations, but there's all sorts of other uses. But
Right.
the same thing is like the probability, the statistical analysis, knowing that your data is genuine, is very important. Otherwise, you're going to come out with a skewed, and there's lots of reasons somebody might skew data, right? All the time, there is a reason to interfere and get a decision to be wrong, right?
Well,
Because it's a dog eat dog world.
yeah. I mean that's actually the Oracle problem. That's the
Right?
core of the Oracle problem, and I don't think we've completely solved it in the aspect that you're talking about. What we can do with the blockchain right now is that we can authenticate a timestamp with a particular piece of data. In other words, we can put up on the blockchain um, uh, a piece of data and say this piece of data, right, was existed at this time, and we can say that with a surety. And that is really the currently only authentication of the data that we have. So it's a timestamp authentication, right? That's the only really solid one. The other one has the problem of you don't know that the source of the data is correct, right? You know that you put this particular data there, but you still could have. So I've seen some of the other blockchains. What they're doing is they're saying, okay, if we get a consensus of data, so like for instance, the price of a stock, for instance, right?
Okay.
So if you have 5 places that give the price, okay, that's very centralized because any one of those is a point of failure. So like any one of those can be compromised, or they could all get together and they could like be like, oh, well, we're gonna say the price is this, and that's not hard to do with 5 people. So the idea is that you need to have it's the source of the data needs to be distributed itself. So like if everyone in the world had like a little device that measured the temperature, and then everybody in the whole world, I mean, and then I don't know, it's hard to get a consensus of data.
It's about perspective as well, right?
Yeah.
One perspective is different from another, and
Yeah.
judging when something is authentic. Uh, we do it too. It's like sometimes, let's take Michael Tolier as an example.
Hmm.
Not exactly sure that what he's saying might be true because all of it is fantastic. I'm not sure whether I can believe that or not. So our heuristics and AI can also be like, is this data believable? I
Yeah.
don't know. That's kind of outlandish. Geez, that pattern, I've never seen anything like that before. Hey, human, have you ever seen anything like that before? I'm like, no, that's interesting. Right. And that's part of the problem we'll solve is like, we're not going to replace people, but there's some things that desire my attention or your attention. Is I'm just going to go bored to death because I'm looking at this monitor, and I just need the big problems brought to me, not the little ones. And the AI
Yeah.
can be like, hey, what the heck is that? Right?
You
I
know,
need to
Right.
escalate.
and gentlemen, I actually just want to bring something up, mostly because I haven't talked for a while, and so it's good to to do that. But I do want to bring up a point, and that is that we approached the Oracle problem, and we talked about how we don't have the Oracle problem in the same way, but I don't know that we ever described it. And sometimes we have new community members watching who haven't heard us talk about this before, and so it's interesting to talk about the way that we don't solve it, but rather we avoid it. And that is because the people who are responsible for inputting the data streams are the ones benefiting from the data streams, and so they are the ones who would be less likely to have better predictions, and therefore it's not good for them to fake data streams. There's nothing good
No
for them
benefit.
that could come out of doing it. So there's no incentivization to do it.
Well, and there's a negative. I mean, they have to. They're gonna want for people to predict their thing. They're gonna have to put up some money for that, right? And so if they put up money, then and they don't get good predictions, and they try to game the system, then they're going to lose the money.
Or
It's their
if
money.
they're a
How much
predictor
is
bringing
it
in an
gain?
outside, or if they're a predictor bringing in an outside data stream, they're still having to run their predictor, and so they're wasting all their electricity and time
Right.
and energy.
Well, there is also the case where there is more to gain by doing that. I had the same problem when I was trying to build titanium. How do I get people to not look at the data? You know, how do I get you to leave the server alone and not try to interface to it? Of course, I could conceal it, I can encrypt it, but if I can make you put up a stake that says if you try to touch it, if I sense you trying to touch it, I take your money, I kick you off the network. The same thing here, Will, is if somebody's trying to manipulate the outcome.
Well, that's just it.
get
Is that they
kicked off.
can? It's that we don't have to kick them off the network at all. Like they can go ahead and try and manipulate their own outcome,
Yeah.
and then they'll just get a
They'll
false
just spend money
prediction
and
stream. Like they just put money in, and then they get out their weird
I mean, if they,
false predicted stream.
yeah, if they, I mean, they could if they put up something for free, like they're like, here, just predict this. Here's some data, right? And then people are relying on that. If they can convince other people to rely on that data, I mean,
There's
those
actually a lot
predictions.
of there are a lot of instances in which you could put something up and get it predicted for free if somebody else will benefit from that prediction stream.
Right. And so if I get it up and people predict, that's when you run into the problem, because then it's like I've convinced you to watch this prediction stream, and then I'm going to manipulate it, right?
Okay.
So you're relying on the accuracy of this prediction, and then I change it and screw with it, and I give you wrong information that screws you up, right? So that is where. But if I pay for that, like if I pay people for that, then it's the people watching it's responsibility to say, hey, I don't trust
That's
this
a bad
data
data
stream.
stream. I need to switch off of it because it's making me less accurate.
But how you combat that is you say, well, I really want the data, and I really want the real prediction. Like I don't want like fake predictions, and I don't want anybody to mess with it. So I'm going to put up the data, and I'm going to provide the money, and so people can predict my stream, and then I get the value of the real predictions because I know that I'm providing the right data.
Or I can sell those real predictions to whoever was already buying those other streams from the false source.
Yeah.
And that's where modularity can come in, because your receivers can also be smart enough to know when the data stream looks like it's corrupted, right?
That's part of the prediction. I mean, that's intrinsic to predicting the data. If there's corruption in the data,
They'll be
right,
less accurate.
it's just part of the data. So you have to be able to predict that.
Right.
I mean, to be accurate. So to be accurate, you have to predict the errors.
Right. And any statistician can tell you that I can manipulate statistics to say almost any story I want to say. Right. But then sometimes I'm like, you know what? I can tell that's a false story. I'm going to call your bluff. You're lying.
Yeah. Right. And you know, that's the main algorithm that actually gains value from the chain that we have. So like if you people don't get paid until the actual data is in the future is put out, right? So I make a prediction today. They don't get paid until until the Oracle puts out the actual value for that prediction I made today, right?
And then reputation. As you put out accurate predictions, I now trust you, right? I know that your data stream is more right.
Right, because I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out your data stream, right? I mean, I don't even have to like trust you particularly. I just have to know. I have to trust you in the sense that I have to understand what you're doing, whatever it is. If you're putting out bad data, it's like I don't care as a predictor. Like I just want to predict the data, whether it's bad or good, right? That's
Right.
a subjective thing, right? For me as a predictor, I'm just trying to figure it out, like what it's actually going on, right? So I predict, and then the future that happens. But for the person who's providing the data, who really wants to know what the future is and get the right prediction from the predictors, right? So there's the other side, like bad actor. So if I'm doing that, what I have to do is what you just said. I have to I have to say, okay, they predicted it in the future, and here's their prediction, but who am I going to believe of all those people? They're
You know
putting
what's really
predictions out.
wrong here is they're going to use it for fantasy football and March
Oh yeah,
Madness.
for sure.
That's what this is going to happen.
It's one of the many thousands of things. Yeah, absolutely.
For March Madness. Oh, that's funny.
Mine was better, right? I used Neural. I made more money based on my good predictions of who was going to win.
That's right.
Who's going to win the boxing game?
Hey, you know what I just realized, guys? We totally should have taken advantage of this in the news cycle, but we're about to release a predictive stream, and sports betting just became legal in every state in the U.S. Potentially. Potentially.
Seriously?
Yeah. Sports betting. So what really happened is that they declared the law which had struck down sports betting to be unconstitutional, because the way that it was written, it essentially didn't say sports betting is illegal. It said that no place could legalize sports betting, which is telling other places how to legislate. And so
bet on the stock, I should be able to bet on anything I want to, right?
I agree. And so now that the law is struck down, any municipality that wants to can legalize sports betting. So
yep.
So yeah, I mean, we're about to release a prediction engine, and I'm just saying potential use cases.
It's going to be bad when everybody's making all that money on Little League. I know your kids get twisted ankle.
Little League.
I'll put a fiver. I'll put a fiver down on Little League. I'll be honest. I'll put a fiver down on a Little League game a lot faster.
As long as they give the players, the Little League players, if they get kickback from all the money that's made off the Little League, then I'm okay with it.
Actually, this is what I want to say, is that there's actually a large body of evidence to support that when people are allowed to bet, they're much more likely to watch and attend the sporting events in the first place. And so, so I mean, we've got a couple of sporting industries that are dying.
Yeah.
And
see, I know that 10-year-old goalie is throwing the game. You couldn't have possibly missed that ball. What the heck?
I was gonna say, I think it'd be more fun to bet on Little League than it would be to bet on professional sports.
You're getting kickbacks. You're going to Congress. It's steroid usage. I'm certain of it.
That's awesome. Oh man.
All right, guys. So, we are at 45 minutes. I know that we're going to continue this conversation. I just want to take a break real quick just to say, hey guys, we're going to be wrapping up in the near-ish future. So if you are watching and you do have any questions for us this week, make sure you get them into the chat so that we can get them answered before we get out of here. All right. So go ahead, guys.
So that particular part, the part where it's deciding you as a person wanting to decide who of these predictors should I trust or whatever, or using their predictions and getting some actual value. What is the prediction of the future? What is the best prediction of the future from that data, right? Of all these predictors that are predicting on the chain. So that part is is a part that we want to add AI to, right? But it won't be part of the blockchain. It's just it's a way to. I mean, you can do a moving average, and that's great. That's a very simple way to do it. But you can also have an AI that actually looks at that data and tries to figure it out for you as well. That trains over time.
Have you ever thought about the proof of work concept when it comes to mining and mining pools? The distributed network, I have these jobs, go do them. Please bring back that information. That kind of star topology where it comes back to the supervisor, where your supervisor's at 50,000 feet. Then you've got some other ones that are down at 10,000 feet, and then some of them are down in the weeds, right? So which predictor do I listen to? I have good. So if you think about that scenario where you can have different perspectives on your prediction, mind blowing. That's where we're at right now. That's what I'm studying, thinking about what does that supervisor do to decide what the important data to munge is? Like,
Yeah.
some of it's just irrelevant, right? You know, that kid right there, look at those calves, man. He's been running, he's fast. The statistics are that he hits the ball more than the other kids. That team's going to win because they've got more of this, and the more things that the predictor learns about the game. Think about if we were predicting chess wins, like which particular player has better play. Anyway, I love such topics.
Yeah. So, but there's another thing that this has to do with the thing I was talking about. There's another thing where there's an incentive kind of mechanism for the oracle, the person providing the data who wants to get good predictions, that they need to incentivize the set up the incentive structure, the exact incentive structure for the predictors getting paid when they get, and it's a very, like,
Yep.
when I put the data out, how do these people get paid, right?
Capitalistic thought. I think that's great. Supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know what the answer is to this, and it's like, hey, it's worth some money to me, right? Well, let's crowd around the ones that are profitable, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems straightforward, but you got to put that into code somehow. Like I said, like a simple the simplest one I could think of was literally just if they get it exact, right? The first person in time to get it exact gets paid, and nobody else does, right? That is one solution, but it has its
well, that's a survival of the fittest scenario, right? Where
right.
the one that is fed. So yeah, I'm quite on to that. So and that's the thing is also your reputation is a survival of the fittest. Only the predictors that have the best success rates should be listened to. Otherwise, I let them die.
Right.
I stop feeding them.
Right. You stop feeding them. That's the part.
Feed the right
other ones, but you're like, this guy, I'm only going to feed you so that I keep you alive because I think you're the most important in the future, right? I might listen to everybody else though and be like, oh well, I heard that maybe he has knows a little more, maybe he don't. But you decide how you're going to feed your guys out there. So that's what the PCC actually is, right? And so what I was thinking, what's that?
A chorus. Like I have let's take it in Star Trek terms. Mm-hmm. I've got my Kirk, I've got my Bones, I've got my Spock, I've got my different perspectives, so I can make the best prediction on the outcome because I'm listening to different ideas in different ways, points of view, right? So a chorus.
Right.
Hold on. I like to think about.
I got to interrupt, Corey. I just want to point something out. There's not really a huge risk of being left with only one predictor in that scenario. Largely because it's a competitive thing, and so it's not like you're only going to feed one, even if he's even if he's not the most accurate.
Somebody might get it good one time, and somebody might not get another one. But yeah, it would tend to reduce the amount of people on the thing. That might be an outcome, right?
Also, and what Will was trying to point out is that you could also make it so that you're paying the winner a higher amount and the next closest a slightly smaller amount or whatever. Like there's all kinds of ways that you can set that up.
That's what I'm saying.
That can even affect how many people participate or how accurate the prediction is in the long run.
And if you don't do that, you have bias that eventually occurs because something is more likely to. Well, of course, that's a place where I start to try to cheat the system. It's like I know you're going to take the answer from this one, so I try to manipulate that.
Totally.
And by keep playing the field, I continue to keep that from happening. Survival of the fittest by diversification of my predictors.
Right, and so what I came up with as a meta solution to that, what I've been thinking about is like actually putting for the code for that to be a neural network itself, like a deterministic network that you can run on the chain, and so all the miners, right, that are mining the network would run the actual. You're actually putting a model onto the chain itself, like with your transaction, like you include the data of a model. So like a small
to the data, right?
What's that?
Or a pointer to the data, because think about the world's slowest database, the blockchain. You don't want to put too much in it, right?
But a neural network running on just the blockchain would take ages. But if it pointed to it,
pointers to it. pointers to it, right? These are metadata about data that's somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It's just the hash of
Right.
the model. But you don't want the model too complicated because every miner is gonna have to run that exact model and to
Right.
authenticate it, right? So they're
Right.
gonna run the model. It's gonna grab some data from the blockchain or something, and it's gonna decide how people get paid out, and do that instead of actually coming up with our own strategies. Like you let it, and then you put in a learning algorithm that lets it change over time. And so as you put in new ones, you can change it. You can have it learn and modify and change. And as you do new prediction, competitions. So you can put up a competition, try out this model. If it doesn't work very well, you can have it learn from that situation and then throw up a new model for a new competition.
Maybe even use like project management as a template for it, right? Like agile project management, where you give a charter to the project. I need to find out this prediction, right? And then of course I have an idea of how I'm going to go about finding it. But then as I find out that one is not fruitful, I cut it off and go to a more fruitful path, right?
I'm not exactly talking about that. I'm talking about how you incentivize the miners.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like how do you actually incentivize them? Like how do you pay them out based on their closeness or how they predict, right? And so as the consumer of the predictions, I'm going to want the best predictions, and so I need to figure out how to incentivize. So what I'm thinking is actually, instead of like a standard, pay the top guy, or maybe we try a bunch of different things, which people will do anyway, which we will include, like some stuff. Like we're going to let people do that, but I want to add in there the capability of some what do you call it? More, huh?
Randomization, maybe, to sampling.
No.
Random sampling.
No, people who are willing to like step out of that world and be like, I'm going to trust a model, an AI, to do it for me.
Oh, okay.
People who are like I
trailblazers,
can't
entrepreneurs,
figure it out like on my own, or it's not doing good enough. And like you said, you're going to find and not anomalies. It was you said people are going to be able to game it, right? So they'll be able to game that. Without people, I'm just like, I don't want to figure it out. I'm going to let the AI figure it out, and it changes as people learn how to game it. So if somebody comes up with a gaming for it, it just learns some new thing to combat the gaming that somebody comes up with, right? So that's what I'm going to try. That's what I'm going to actually try to implement for Neureal. And that leads into this other thing that I figured out with Jordan. I mean, just figured out in general, is this thing that may be foundational to blockchains themselves. And I wanted to say it like on a public forum, because I don't know if anybody's doing it or what, but I want to be like, hey, I thought of this thing. And basically, it's the idea. It's a hard kind of concept, I think, for people to grasp. But the idea is that right now the blockchain itself, like the blockchain, is all the miners running the code. So a whole bunch of miners run this code. Think of Ethereum, and that is the execution of the blockchain. So there's one thing you can't do in this situation, and that is for instance, as an example, have a private key, okay, that the blockchain stores itself, that no person has access to, but yet the blockchain code can actually run that and use that private key to sign transactions, for instance, on another blockchain. There's an issue with that. People are trying to do like cross-chain things. They're trying to do like distributed.
Like the Lightning Network or something like that, where it's a cross blockchain transaction. Right?
Imagine one blockchain having imagine one blockchain, okay, having a private key for another blockchain, and being able to write transactions that execute on that other chain. The problem with that is that private key, it's not private. because every person, in order for it to run and work, it runs on all the miners' machines. And so all the humans, the miners, can go in and look at the code and analyze it and figure it out and be like, oh, there's the private key. I can just write transactions and do it myself.
Okay.
That's the problem with that. You following me? This is going to be hard to kind of grasp, but this is I just want to say it here. So this is the problem that people are running into. This is the issue with this decentralized exchanges, with all this kind of thing and this cross-chain stuff, and doing it decentralized is because that is an example that we figured out that's a really good example of why it doesn't work. And it's this play. So I used this idea of like having this neural network that you. So for the Oracle, the thing for that I was just talking about earlier, you have this little neural network. So it's just a model, right? And you all agree on this particular code that runs the model, but the model is just a file. So the file can be hashed and the file put up on the blockchain with a transaction. So you get that transaction, you get the model, and then all the miners can run that model. And they get an input of they put data into it and they get data out. Okay, so they get something out. They put something in to get something out. In the case of Neureal and the thing I was talking about earlier, they put in the data from the blockchain and they get out how to pay people, right? How to pay the predictors. So that's what the model does in that situation, right? Okay. Well, this is the thing that I figured out. So imagine having a model that is so complicated that's like 10 gigabytes or something in size. It's so complicated that it's like I said on the chat, it's like having a math problem in 12-point type that circles the whole globe. I mean a math equation. So imagine a math equation that is written in 12-point type but that circles the globe. Okay? Like no human being is going to be able to analyze that in their lifetime.
Obviously, you have to break it down. Too big.
What's that?
Right. You'd obviously have to break it down to be too big.
Just break it down into chunks and have different people analyze different sections.
Yeah, but it still wouldn't happen because the complication of that is too much. Think of it's math. It's a math equation. And so like it's hard to just do like a little piece of it.
Gotcha.
Right.
You have to get your mind around it. There's going to have to be that hierarchy. So the only way to combat, so what I'm saying is the only way, at some point, you pass the capabilities of humans and other machines in analyzing this model. Like you can't do it in any short amount of time.
It's exhaustive, right?
Like you can do it, but it's going to take you like X amount of years with X amount of computers and X amount of brains on it, right? And so it passes that barrier of like being able to analyze it. Okay, so what you do is you train that model. You train it to, you have an input public key, and you train it to pop out a public key. Okay? And you train, this is the most minimum thing you do. So you train it, you put in a public key, and then you train it to pop out a public key. Okay? Then you train it to create a transaction that sends coin signed by the private key. I'm putting this in quotes because it's in there somewhere, but you train it to be able to sign a transaction that corresponds with the private, but the public key that it output. And what that does, so that, okay, just that's a lot of hand waving, and I'm waving my hands on purpose, but just imagine that, and then imagine what you could do with that. Okay, so here you have this model that is unanalyzable, right? It's just a huge mathematical equation, but somehow you can pop in your public key from a particular blockchain. So let's say Bitcoin. So you pop in your public key from Bitcoin. It pops out a Ethereum public key. You can send Ether to that public key, okay? And then it can turn around and at some point and sign a transaction that sends that ether somewhere else. Okay, now where is the private key in that? You can't find it.
You'd have to have a common denominator somewhere for it to make it to do the auth, to actually look with my codex and see the message, right? So
wait, what?
So it's a codex, right? Everybody has the same codex.
It's a codex. What do you mean a codex?
So, for instance, the private key is the codex by which the public key in these two scenarios is recognized, the pattern.
No, it's just public-private encryption. So how that works is that.
Well, I understand that, but I'm trying to follow how the two chains are interacting without having a common denominator of communication. Is what I'm right. They both have
the two chains aren't interacting on their own.
Okay.
It's this AI that's doing it. So this AI acts, this model does it. So you literally put as the input to the model, you put your public key. Now wait, that doesn't make sense if the output's okay. So it sends the ether. It makes more sense this way. You put two public keys in. You put a Bitcoin, your own. So I would send in to this model my Bitcoin address, my public Bitcoin address, and my public Ether address. Okay, I would send that in. Then it would pop out a let's say two addresses, a Bitcoin and an Ether. Okay, and then I would send Ether from my public key that I sent it, my private key that corresponds to the public key that I put up and gave it. Excuse me. I would send, so it knows, right? I would send I would send 10 Bitcoin, or not 10. I would send one Bitcoin to the public address that it popped out, right?
Okay.
So I would send one Bitcoin to that, and then let's say had now it's on there. I'm trying to come up with a good thing that makes sense. So then let's see, it would and then just as an example, it doesn't make any sense or anything, but I would send then 5 Ether to the Ether address of its, right? But when I did that, it would send me back half of my Bitcoin. That's not super useful or anything, but the fact that it can actually send that to me is useful, right? So
right. I like it. I liken it to a wormhole through otherwise something that's mundane, right? Kind of a shortcut.
It's a wormhole to another realm. So the realm is that model. So the actual private key that it uses to sign that transaction, right? So it pops out of the output of the neural network comes a transaction that corresponds to the public key that it previously sent out, right? And so it has the capability, like if you send money to that public key, it then has the ability to send that money somewhere else.
And distribute it, right? It's like a manager. I have this resource, use that resource. I don't want to think about it again. Right.
Yeah, and the key here is that the private key, no person can know it or knows it or can know it. No human being can know that private key. It's locked up in the model.
Okay. So we have to whiteboard this at some time, but yeah, I think I'm following.
Yep. All right, gentlemen, we've actually gone 5 minutes.
I understand it's really complicated, but I wanted to get it out on a public forum so that people could know that I could reference back and say, I talked about that, right?
Yeah.
That's why I want to say it here. And so I'm saying it because I think that is a solution to some things that are that's a possible solution to things that are foundational to a lot of these problems that people are trying to figure out. And I think it's a possible foundational solution to decentralization and a next step beyond for it.
I like it because I definitely see what you're talking about. It's about distribution on a level of on an order of uncertainty. I'm thinking.
Yeah, order of uncertainty in that you can't it's a way to obfuscate or whatever data, or information that you can run in a decentralized manner, so that all the miners can actually run the code. They can run the neural net code and put in the same data and get out the same data, right? And so they can authenticate that code,
right?
And at the same time, it's hidden data inside the
Mhm.
model. It hides the data inside the model so that no human being can use it.
You hit on something. Obfuscate, which is to hide. My company is named Obfuscate because you can only see the gate from a certain perspective. It's a hidden gate, right? So you're talking about a very deep subject to me because it's only seen from one perspective, and only those who are in on the joke, who know the what we're doing, know it.
Well, and in
Right.
this case, the only thing that knows it is the model. Like
Right.
the AI itself is the only thing that knows it.
And that keeps an outside observer from helping cheat because you can't see. It's within.
You can't use the
I like
private
that.
key. You can't send the ether out. You can send ether to that address, and the only way that it can be sent out of that address is if all the miners in the decentralized network run the code and run the code, and that's how it moves.
Okay, I got it.
All right, gentlemen.
That's it.
Good to get that out. Good to get this out here, guys. I've got a couple of business items to wrap up before we leave, and unfortunately, I've got to go take care of biological functions. So let's get these wrapped up very quickly. We want to thank everybody who was here this week. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm not going to be doing a stream or a giveaway this week because we only had 2 viewers. Well, so for all you coming later, leave a comment if you want to be entered into our giveaway. You have to. If you're selected, I'll send you a message and I'll ask for what email you used to sign up for the bounty program. Those of you who are just joining us this week for the bounty program, here is your word of the week. This is the prediction. Prediction is the code word for this week. Prediction. Bet you didn't predict that. There you go. All lowercase. Prediction. There it is right on the screen. That's what you're going to need in order to unlock those bounty tokens that you earned if you joined the bounty program this week. Thank you all so much for being here. Go fill out that survey. Please do. And I think that's it. Everybody want to say bye? Bye.
Live long and prosper.